Hi lovelies, you're welcome to my channel. If you're a returning subscriber, you're welcome and I appreciate. So I'm going to be drafting this beautiful stylish corset you see here on my screen. So let's get started. Now the first thing you need to do is to determine your measurement and all that. Now I've gone ahead to place my pattern paper and these are the materials I'm going to use to draft this dress. Now I will go ahead and mark a point here. This point I'm going to take as my shoulder point and my starting point. So from that point there, I'm going to come down to my bust point. I'm going to come down to my under bust point as well, and then 18 inches. I'll mark 18 inches for my waist point. Now I will go ahead and I will rule a straight line on those points I marked out. Quick one guys, so if you're going to be wearing this dress with a nyash pad, please take your measurement with the nyash pad, that is your hip circumference. And then another way you can draft this is to come down by your waistline by 5 or 6 inches. So now I've labeled the lines I have on my pattern paper. Now from my front waistline, I'm going to come down by 8 inches. Now that is the length from my waist to my hip point, okay, because of the kind of dress that we are making. Now I will go ahead and rule a straight line on that point and then I will label it my hip line. Now after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to divide my shoulder measurement, which is 16 inches divided by 2 will give me 8 inches. So I'll mark the 8 inches point there, and then I'll mark 3 inches for the neck wideness and then 3 inches for the neck depth. Now this is the basic standard neck measurement. Now I will go ahead and connect the points this way as you see me doing. Now from that 8 inches point that I mark on my shoulder line, I will come down by 1 inch to get my shoulder slope, and then I will connect the shoulder slope point to the neck wideness on my shoulder line. Now I'm going to take my armhole circumference of 17 inches divided by 2 will give me 8.5 inches. So I will mark the point there and then I will go ahead to connect it this way. And also I will connect another line this way. Now this line here will be my chest line. The next thing I'm going to do now is to mark my bust circumference divided by 4, which will give me 10 inches. I will mark it there on my chest line. And then I will divide what I have on my armhole line by 2. And then I will come in by half of an inch. Then from that half of an inch, I'm going to connect it this way to the body measurement on my chest line. So this has formed my front armhole. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to take my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2 will give me 4 inches. Now I'm going to mark the 4 inches on my bust line, my under bust line, my front waistline, and then my hip line. Now I will go ahead and connect to those points in a straight way. And after doing that, this is my center front and then this is my side front. So on the hip line here, I'm going to be marking 1 inch beside the main dart leg. Okay, now I will repeat the same thing on my front waistline. I'll repeat the same thing on my under bust line. So after doing that, I'll go ahead to connect those points with my ruler. Now after I'm done connecting it, from my bust line, I will come down on the dart leg by 1 inch. And then I will go ahead to connect it this way. So after I'm done connecting it, the next thing I'm going to do is to divide what I have left on my shoulder by 2. Now I will get the midpoint and then I will connect from that midpoint on my shoulder to the dart leg on my bust line. Now after connecting it, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to label this my chest line, okay? So from that my chest line, I will come up by 2 inches. Now you can come up by 1 inch, by 2 inches. It depends on how covered you want your bust to be, okay? Now I will go ahead and rule a straight line on that point. and then I will label this my upper chest line. The next thing I will do is to mark 1 inch this way on my center front and then my side front on the dart leg. Okay, now I will go ahead and connect it this way. So after I'm done connecting this, I'll go ahead and mark my bust circumference divided by 4. I've already marked the point, so I'm going to replace the dart intake of 2 inches here. And then I'll come to my waistline. I will mark my waist circumference divided by 4. I will replace the dart intake of 2 inches. Now I will come over to my hip line. I will mark my hip circumference divided by 4. I will replace the dart intake of 2 inches. Now I'll go ahead, use my pencil to connect these points together. Now, the reason for using pencil to connect the points together first is because I'm going to be snatching the waist of this dress by 0.75. So I'm just using the pencil to just get the full body shape first before I will do that, okay? Now, the next thing I'm going to do, under my bust line on the body shape, I'm going to come down by 1.5 inches, and then I will connect it this way to the bust line to form my side dart. Okay, now I will go ahead and just mark this out because I'm going to be closing this. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to open up the shoulder dart. Now opening up the shoulder dart will enable me to be able to close the side darts properly. Now I'm going to be cutting out, like slashing out that bust line to this point. So I'm going to stop here and then I will go ahead to close the side dart. So I'll just use my tape to tape this down. So after I'm done closing the side dart, the next thing I'm going to do is to replace, like to shape back the side because of the dart that I just closed. Some measurements and line have adjusted, so I'm just trying to balance it. Now I'm going to measure what I have from this body measurement point to the armhole point here by 2. So just watch what I'm doing, okay? I will mark the middle point, and then from that middle point on the armhole area, I will connect it this way with my curve rule to my under bust line. Now this has formed one side of my cup. You can see how perfectly the cup is sitting. Now from the bust line at the center front, I will go in by half of an inch. Now from that half of an inch I went in by on the bust line, I will connect it this way to my under bust line with my curve rule. So just make sure that your curve rule is sitting perfectly, okay? Now the next thing I'm going to do now is to come up from this my upper chest line here at the beside the armhole area. I'll come up by 2 inches. You can come up by 1.5 inches, okay? Now from this point here, I'm going to use my pencil to trace that shape that this dress I'm actually drafting has. Okay, so I'm just using my pencil to trace the shape to get what I want before I will use my marker to outline it. After doing that, I'm going to measure from my upper chest line point here to the bust line this way. Now this is to measure it so that one particular side won't be longer than the other side. So after I was done measuring both cup from the upper chest line to the bust line, I realized that the center front was a bit shorter, so I just had to extend it by half quarter of an inch. Okay, so now I'm going to use my pencil to trace out the shape that this dress have on the center front cup. So once I use my pencil to trace out the shape to what I want, I will now use my marker to outline the shape, okay? So go ahead and do the same thing. Use your pencil first, then use your marker to outline. Now, after getting what I want for the shape, I will go ahead to use my marker to outline the shape, okay? So after I've done outlining it, the next thing I'm going to do now is to measure what I have from my bust line to my under bust line at the center front. Then at the side front cup, I will measure the same 3.5 inches upwards from my under bust line. Then I will mark the point there. Now the next thing I'm going to do from this point here, I will go in by half of an inch. So now I'm going to connect that point here to this point I have on my cup area. So this has formed that side shape that the dress have, okay? Now the next thing I'm going to do is to mark out the short cup, okay, that is outside the main cup that has that design. So from this 3.5 inches point that I mark on the side front cup, I'm going to connect this in a curve method, meeting the bust line on the center front. So after marking this, I'm going to label the center front my cup 1, the side front my cup 2. Then for the smaller cup, I will label cup 1 and cup 2. And then label the right side facing each other. Now I'm going to go back to the front waist line. Remember I said I'm going to be snatching out 0.75 on the waistline alone. So I'm going to go in by 0.75. I'll mark the point there, and then I will connect it to the bust line. That is the bust measurement, and also the hip measurement this way. So I'm using my marker to actually do this now because this is the body measurement that I need for this dress. That's the reason why I'm using my marker to outline it now, okay? Now the next thing I'm going to be doing is to add half-inch seam allowance. Now you can make use of 1-inch seam allowance. It depends on what you actually want here. So 1-inch seam allowance is still okay if that is what you want to make use of. Now from the hip line here, I'm going to come up by 1 inch, and this is to give it a little bit curve at the hip area. Now I will use my curve rule to connect it this way. So now I'm going to come out from that point by the half-inch seam allowance because this is now my new hip length at the side. Now I'm going to go ahead and connect it this way. So after I'm done doing that, I'll go ahead to cut out the front piece. So at this armhole area part here, I will use my marker to just rule a straight line connecting to the chest line this way. Now I'll go ahead to continue cutting the front piece. So after I'm done cutting the front piece, the next thing I'm going to do is to close up these two sides together. That is the center front and the side front. I'm going to close this up together this way. And then the next thing I'm going to do is to work on the cup area. Now I'm going to bring a plain paper, and then I will trace the shape of the front cup, that is the cup 1. And I will bring out another plain paper, I will trace out the cup 2. So after I'm done tracing out the cup 1 and the cup 2, So what I'm going to do now, because I don't have my tracing wheel, so I'm going to join the main pattern paper with the new pattern paper together this way, and then I will fold it from that line that I mark out, which is the red line I mark out for the outer short cup. Then after getting the line on the new pattern paper, I'll just cut this out this way. Okay, now if you have your tracing wheel, you can do it the normal way. Now I'm going to be indicating where it's going to be facing the part I'm going to sew as the middle of the cup. So I'm going to repeat the same thing for the cup one as well. So let me quickly explain this here. When you sew the two cups, I realized little adjustment needs to be done on the neckline design. Please go ahead and do so. So after doing that, I'm going to be cutting the short cup times 2 for the center front. For the side cup, for the short cup, I'll cut times 2. Then the main big cup, I'll cut times 2 for the cup 1 and the cup 2. So now for this part here, I'm going to be cutting it on fold. And this is totally all for the front piece, guys. So I'll go ahead to cut out the back piece. So to cut out the back pattern, we will not be needing the zipper allowance, okay? Now mark a point here as my starting point and also my shoulder point. I will measure to 16.5 inches of my back waist point. Now I'm going to rule a straight line on the point I have there. So after I'm done ruling the straight line, I'll label this line my shoulder line, my back waist line. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to come down from that my back waist line by 8 inches from my hip point, and then I'll rule a straight line there and label it my hip point. So the back length and the front length is not always the same thing. So mine for the back is 16.5, for the front is 18 inches. So go ahead and measure yours, okay? Now the next thing I'm going to do is to come down from my shoulder line here to my bust point. And then I will rule a straight line on that point. The next thing I'm going to do is to take my shoulder measurement of 8 inches. Then I'll take the wideness of the neck of 3 inches. Then I'll come down for the depth by 2 inches. I'll go ahead and connect the 2 points together. Now the next thing I will do is to come down from that 8 inches point at the shoulder line by 1 inch to get my shoulder slope. Now I'm going to connect that shoulder slope to my neck wideness of 3 inches. After doing that, I will take my armhole circumference divided by 2. Now I'm going to mark the point there, and then I will connect it this way to my shoulder slope point, and also I will rule a straight line this way. Now this is my chest line. So the next thing is to divide what I have for the armhole part. I will get the midpoint, and then I will take my bust circumference divided by 4. I will mark the point on my chest line and then connect it this way for my back armhole. So after doing this, the next thing I'm going to do is from my back waistline, I'm going to go in by half of an inch, and then I will connect it this way. Now I normally do this to avoid zipper bulginess. So doing this just gives it that fitting at the back area. Now I'm going to be taking my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2 from this point here on the back waistline. So after dividing it by 2, I have 4 inches. I'm going to mark the 4 inches this way, and then I will rule a straight line connecting to my hip line and then my chest line. So after I'm done ruling a straight line there, on the back waistline here, I'm going to mark half inch beside the dart leg. Now after doing that, I'll come up on the dart leg from my hip line by 1.5 inches, and then I'll go ahead to connect it this way. So after I'm done doing this, the next thing I will do, I'm going to be cutting out this side as well. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to take my bust measurement, which I already did on my chest line. I will take my waist circumference from this point here. So my waist circumference is 8.5. So from this point here, I will take the 8.5 inches. I'm going to mark the point there, and then I will replace the dart intake of 1 inch here. And then on the hip line, I'm going to take my hip circumference divided by 4. I will mark the point there. There is no dart intake to be replaced there. Now I'll go ahead and use my pencil to connect the body points. So after I'm done doing this, on the back waistline here, I'm going to be snatching it with 0.75, just like I did for the front waistline. So I'm going to go in by 0.75 here, mark the point, and then I will connect it back to the chest line and the hip line. So after I'm done doing this, from the hip line at the side, I'll come up by 1 inch, and then I'll curve it like so. So after doing that, I'm going to be adding my seam allowance of ½ inch, which I told you can make use of 1 inch for the seam allowance is still okay. Now I will mark this on my chest line, bust line, back waistline, and then this my new hip line. I'll go ahead now and connect this with my red marker. So after I'm done doing that, the next thing I'm going to be doing from this my back waistline point here, I will go in by 1.5 inches, and this is how wide I want the lacing for the back to be. Okay, you can make use of 2 inches. It depends on what you want. So now this is how I'm going to place my tape, and I will measure the 1.5 inches both on my back line, on my bust line, on my chest line, and then my hip line. Now I'll go ahead and connect this point together. So when I connect it together, it will still give me that shape that is a little bit curvy. It will still give me that shape. Okay, now this is what I have after I was done doing it. Now I'm going to bring the front piece as well. I'll place it on top this. You can see I have the same measurement for the length, and then I'm going to be holding the dart so it will balance up with the front width. Okay, now go ahead now and mark where I'm going to be stopping the neck depth. Now go ahead and connect it this way. I don't want mine to be straight. You can make yours straight, it's totally fine, but I want mine to have a little bit curve. Now go ahead and curve it this way, as you can see. Now the next thing I'm going to do is just to mark where my eyelet is going to be, so this will be more understandable. So after doing that, I'm going to label where I'm joining from, okay? And then I will mark the center back and then the side back. Now I'll go ahead to cut this out. So after I was done cutting the back piece, this is what I have, and then this is it for the front piece as well. So at this point, if you have not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe, comment, share, and like. I will see you in my next video, but for now, bye and thanks for watching.